This is not a normal Japanese campaign speech. When Japanese political candidates are given several minutes of airtime on public television, they're only allowed to bring the clothing on their backs and a copy of the speech they'll be reading. No props are allowed. However, the rules have a loophole. They fail to place a limit on the size of the speech paper. So, this person is actually hiding his face behind a giant campaign speech. The whiteboard has text on it that reads, 2024 Tokyo Gubernatorial Campaign Speech Script. Who the heck is this guy, and why would he cover his face like this? Hello, I'm Jeffrey Hall, and welcome to Japan Matters, a channel in which we discuss various matters related to Japan. In this video, we'll be looking at the case of a man who calls himself AI Mayor. He's been running in elections since 2014, and repeatedly losing. He runs on serious issues sometimes, and then other times it doesn't really seem like he's running on any issues at all. However, through his story, we can get a better understanding of Japan's election system, and also there's some entertaining bits to this story as well, involving karate chops and a feud with Japan's Joker politician. But before we get to the epic rivalry between AI Mayor and the Joker, let's cover the basics. As his name might suggest, AI Mayor believes in using artificial intelligence to make political policy decisions, and during the 2024 Tokyo gubernatorial election, he received considerable attention online for his bizarre face-hiding tactics and his posters, which featured an image of a robot with the name AI Mayor and no actual human name. However, he wasn't always involved in AI politics, and he didn't always hide who he was. Do you remember the file sharing scene in the early 2000s? Maybe some of you watching this weren't even alive at that time, but those of us who were old enough to use a computer may have come into contact with programs like Napster, Kazaa, Lime, and Morpheus. These were hugely popular peer-to-peer file-sharing programs that allowed aspiring pirates to share music and other cool stuff with each other without having to pay copyright holders. Japan had its own variations of such programs, and one was called File Rogue. The company that made it was headed by a man named Matsuda Michihito, a former employee of Yahoo Japan. This is the man who would later become AI Mayor. Like its overseas counterparts, File Rogue enabled users to share copyrighted music, and the copyright holders were not happy about it. They took legal action against Matsuda's company, and File Rogue was quickly taken down. Matsuda would disappear from the public eye for a little over a decade. He re-emerged in 2014 to run for mayor of his hometown, Tokyo's Tama City. Tokyo is made up of many different wards and cities, and Tama City is home to about 148,000 Tokyoites. In the previous election, Tama had elected its first ever left-wing progressive mayor, who was backed by a coalition of opposition parties, including the Communist Party. It does not appear that the incumbent mayor was facing an LDP-backed conservative opponent, so Matsuda threw his hat into the ring as an independent candidate without the backing of any major political parties or organizations. Here is his official newspaper ad from the 2014 election. Every candidate gets equal space in a newspaper, and his platform consisted of the basic kind of stuff one sees in a lot of local level political campaigns, which is promises of increased services for residents. For example, he wanted to introduce taxi subsidies for the elderly and subsidies for children's cram school tuition. It contained a brief resume advertising his experience as a businessman, including a mention of being sued by the music industry and settling a lawsuit. It listed his current position as a managing director of the Japanese branch of a foreign company. There's no hint that he would later become a supporter of AI politics, but it does mention that he'd like the city to distribute information in a format simple enough for a sixth grader to understand, which is similar to his later proposals for transparency using AI. In this election, the incumbent was easily re-elected with over 80% of the vote. Matsuda received about 3,500 votes, or 8.86% of the vote, which was actually last place. Still, he'd proven that he could convince a few thousand people to vote for him, which is no laughing matter in a local election. Sometimes people have to work really hard to get that many votes. A lot of fringe candidates in Japan run many times without ever receiving more than 1% of the vote in elections. When the mayor's term came to an end 4 years later, Matsuda would once again challenge the incumbent, but this time he had found a new cause: artificial intelligence. Here is the official newspaper advertisement from the 2018 Tama mayoral election, in which he argued that AI could be used to perform useful tasks, such as identifying activities that wasted tax money. He alleged that he'd also used AI to find that a city council member's official report of a taxpayer-funded business trip to Okinawa had actually copied a newspaper article from the Okinawa Times instead of actually writing something based on his own views. This raised questions about what the city council member had actually been doing while supposedly on an inspection tour. Matsuda would tell a journalist, "Tama City, where I was born and raised, was originally one of the world's most advanced cities as a new town, but now it is aging and the city has lost its vitality. I believe through efforts involving AI, we can make Tama a cutting-edge city once again. Make Tama great again, basically." He envisioned that AI was to be used to complement human decisions rather than completely replace them. At the time, Matsuda shared this image on social media, laying out his vision of the evolution of Japanese politics, from the Meiji era of feudal domain oligarchs, followed by the party politics of the Taisho period, and the militaristic politics of the war years. This was to be replaced by the post-war democracy dominated by the LDP's faction-based machine politics, personified by figures such as Tanaka Kakue. Next came the era of television, in which charismatic politicians such as Koizumi Junichiro became popular. According to Matsuda, the next era was coming, and it would be the era of AI politics, with a robot face replacing the faces of human politicians. Matsuda's campaign poster had his name along with a picture of a robot, and his campaign car had a banner with a robot on it as well, saying that he wanted an automatic driving car. Journalist Takayama Michiyoshi would later humorously observe that the van appeared to have gotten into some kind of accident and damaged its banner, something that seemed to emphasize the need for automatic driving, at least for Mr. Matsuda. This is several years before ChatGPT was released to the public and made AI-generated content a part of everyday life for a lot of people. Today, everyone and their cousin is pitching ideas related to AI, but when Matsuda started talking about it, a considerable amount of news media paid attention. This was something novel and interesting. Japanese domestic media reported on it, as well as international newspapers. He was even mentioned on American TV.
In tonight's Fact or Fiction, we're looking into an unusual political candidate. A story going around claims an artificial intelligence candidate ran for mayor in a city in Japan and actually got thousands of votes. It's basically true. A real person named Mashido Matsuda ran for mayor but said that he'd use AI to make decisions that are impartial and balanced. He even used an AI avatar on his campaign posters, and a lot of people took him seriously.
It should be noted that not all media coverage was positive. For example, one Japanese television report at the time featured this elderly voter pointing to the poster and expressing doubt about why anyone would want to listen to a heartless machine. Despite eye-catching robot posters and a novel idea centered on AI, Matsuda once again finished in distant third place. His final vote count was 4,013, about 500 more votes than he'd received in the 2014 mayoral election. Matsuda did not let this loss dampen his resolve to continue advocating for AI politics. Over the next few years, he would travel abroad and meet with people overseas who shared his views on artificial intelligence helping democracy. Some of his views can be seen in an English-language PowerPoint presentation he gave several months after the 2018 election at a German think tank called To Be Ahead. At the beginning of his presentation, he decided to do a display of karate, which he had learned in his youth. So he had some cinder blocks that he smashed with his hand. Ouch, that kind of looks a little bit painful, but then he stood up, got onto the computer, and started presenting. His talk was entitled Politics 2028, Why Artificial Intelligence Will Replace Politicians. Its slides are actually still up on the site SlideShare, and that's where I got these images. But let's briefly look at some of the points he made in this speech. To start, why would Matsuda run for office when he's a human being and not a robot? Well, that's because Japanese election laws require that candidates be living people, not machines. In this slide, he says he's lending his name to the AI. Matsuda depicts himself as a puppet of an AI robot, but he sees that as a good thing, actually. AI politics will deliver what Matsuda calls fair opportunities for all. In the Fair Opportunities for All slide, he includes images of his campaign poster and his campaign car, both of which featured his friendly-looking robot. But here's a question, why do we even need AI politicians? Well, according to Matsuda, it's because humans are stupid. Human politicians are involved in various scandals, including the alleged fake city council business trip that he found using AI. Instead of learning from history, we should just replace ourselves with AI decision makers who can do it for us. If you're wondering if AI could really handle all this kind of work a mayor does, don't worry. Matsuda created a chart showing his belief about what mayors do during their work days. You can see that he thinks mayors don't spend a lot of time on useful things. They attend a lot of ceremonies, they make courtesy visits, they sign stuff, they answer questions from the city council, they do on-site reviews, and also a considerable amount of their time is just spent surfing the internet. So he believes that 80% of this job can be done by robots and AI and become much more efficient. One of the most amusing parts of the presentation involves Prince Shotoku, a semi-legendary figure who served as regent of Japan in the 7th century. There are a lot of tales about how this guy was a super genius, and apparently one of these tales involved his ability to listen to 8 people speaking at one time and process all of the information being spoken to him. But you know who could even listen to more people? Artificial intelligence. Matsuda claims that the AI he'd utilize would be able to listen to 1 million people simultaneously. That's much more than the population of Tama. The AI would be able to listen so well that voting would become obsolete. The political will of every single person in a country could be detected in real time. Matsuda argued that artificial intelligence can replace representative government with direct democracy in its purest form. No longer would we need elected representatives to decide things for us. We could be like ancient Athens and vote on everything. And by vote, I guess I mean have the AI detect your political will and act upon it in real time. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. It sounds really cool that a robot can make decisions on our behalf, but doesn't that use a lot of processing power and electricity? Surely that must be too expensive. Well, don't worry. Matsuda has a plan for that too. Kind of plan you might expect from someone who thinks AI should run everything. Regional cryptocurrency. Tama City would be able to raise huge amounts of money via an initial coin offering. It would be enough to fund the AI. Tama City coins, as they would be called, were going straight to the moon to revitalize the regional economy and streamline city services. Also, Tama City would be using blockchain for things like electronic voting, asset management, and the creation of new contracts. Alright, so we've got the basics of his plan for AI politics in Tama City down, but let's pause for a moment and remember the beginning of his speech. Did any of you watch that clip of Matsuda slamming his hand into those tiles and think, damn, that looks like the kind of thing that could cause an injury? Well, apparently it was. About 10 minutes into his address, Matsuda revealed that his hand was bleeding, and one of the event staff actually had to bandage his hand mid-speech. Maybe that whole martial arts show wasn't such a great idea after all. After the bandaging, he continued to speak about his vision of an AI-based future, which would achieve a great many things, such as removing the influence of wealth in politics, ending all wars, and achieving full rights for robots. He also raised the question of, human-robot love. If you want to find out more about his views on those topics, you can check the slide link in the description of this video. However, I'm going to go back to talking about electoral politics now. In the middle of his speech, he also announced some big plans. In the next year's election, his AI Party of Japan would run 1,000 candidates in local elections. I guess this fell through, though, because I wasn't able to find information about such a thing actually happening in 2019. The 1,000 candidate thing may not have actually happened, but Matsuda did not give up. He would make his third attempt at running for mayor of Tama City in April 2022. This time, though, instead of running under his real name, he ran under his professional wrestling ring name, Jumbo Matsuda. Yes, you heard that right. He's also a professional wrestler. In 2021, he made his debut as a professional wrestler for an organization called Theater Pro Wrestling Kacho Fugetsu, where he would fight at events involving such notables as Dragon Poo, Dragon Boy, Ishigaki Tiger, and Macho Michaels. During the Tama City election, Matsuda made use of wrestling events to promote his own candidacy. This is not unheard of in Japanese politics. In fact, the current governor of Ishikawa Prefecture is a famous pro wrestler and has actually participated in wrestling events while holding elected office. However, Matsuda was not wrestling for any of the major pro wrestling organizations, and he was relatively unknown, so he couldn't really use celebrity status to get elected here. He also does not appear to have had the physique that a lot of wrestlers maintain, and some photos from wrestling events that took place during his political campaign look like his 43-year-old body had taken a beating. You might think that he would use this campaign to advance his ideas on AI politics, but this 2022 Tama City mayoral campaign was more focused on promoting the airdrop of a new cryptocurrency called Thanks You. His official newspaper advertisement and his election posters emphasized Thanks You over the fact that he was running as a member of the AI party. Throughout the campaign period, he drove around in an election car that had Thanks You written on it in larger letters than his own name. What actually was he running for? Even his pro wrestling appearances included Thanks You promotions. It was a major contrast from his 2018 campaign, which seemed very seriously focused on informing the public of his views on how artificial intelligence could improve politics. All that crypto stuff seems to have confused voters and driven them away at the ballot box. Matsuda received only 516 votes, which was about 1% of the vote and his worst election result yet. From the information I could find online, it also does not look like the Thanks You crypto coin was much of a success either. Not many people are trading it, and I don't think it'll be replacing Bitcoin or becoming a Tama City regional currency anytime soon. It did, however, seem to motivate other pro wrestlers to run for political office in Tokyo. Later in 2022, a new political organization called Tokyo Neo Party 16 was created, headed by the president of the pro wrestling organization that Matsuda wrestled for. They aimed to revitalize local communities through running wrestlers and entertainers as political candidates. I haven't seen a detailed policy plan from them. Perhaps one could consider this an example of using an election to bring attention to an entertainment business, which isn't exactly rare in Japan. Sometimes YouTubers and other entertainers do this so that they get attention from the public through their posters and election speeches. One of this new party's first attempts at running for office was in the Nishi Tokyo City Council election of December 2022. Their candidate was a professional wrestler known as The Shark, and his campaign flyers promised that he was a hero who would gobble up evildoers. Matsuda joined him on the campaign trail and shared tweets of his street speeches. It didn't seem to help very much, though, because the Shark finished with 396 votes, putting him in 36th place out of 40 candidates in a race in which the top 28 candidates won seats, so he wasn't very close at all to getting a seat here. And this new party seems to have largely fizzled out after this election loss. In early 2023, Matsuda moved to the town of Tatsuno in Nagano Prefecture. Whereas Matsuda's old hometown of Tama City had a population density of 18,000 people per square mile, Tatsuno was a rural town with just 290 people per square mile. In his 2019 speech in Germany, Matsuda had identified the elderly as a major obstacle to the acceptance of AI politics. However, this did not dissuade him from attempting to run for city council in a rural community with a grayer population than Tokyo. That year's town council race would be his fourth attempt at running for elected office. Matsuda received the backing of a major political party. Well, maybe not major, but at least a substantial political party. The Ishin Party is a center-right pro-business party that had received about 14% of the vote in the previous year's upper house election. However, a lot of its voter base was situated in western Japan, around Osaka. Part of the Ishin Party's strategy for spreading out into other areas of Japan was to first run for local office, build up local bases of support, and then have areas that it can run candidates for national office in. And this was one such case. Matsuda had a proven record of getting a few thousand votes in Tama City, so it makes sense that Ishin would offer him an endorsement. I doubt they had many other volunteers in this town, so what did they really have to lose? If it had been a party with a long-held presence in the area, such as the LDP, Komeito, or Communist Party, Matsuda would have been able to count on organizational support and established voter blocs to help him out during the election. But Ishin didn't have that, so they really couldn't offer much beyond their national brand as a party that was seeking innovation outside of the LDP. If one were to actually enact Matsuda's plan to replace human politicians with AI, it's doubtful there would be much need for party endorsements or politicians who belong to parties, but maybe this was just a means to an end. Matsuda's campaign posters featured that friendly AI robot that had basically become part of his brand, but this time it was joined by the green logo of the Ishin Party. Also, since ChatGPT was now a household name, it included a pledge of using ChatGPT in town council meetings to make things more efficient. In an interview with the Chunichi Shimbun, Matsuda also introduced another idea. How about we have a robot that can go around and shake people's hands? I guess that sounds kind of cool, but did rural voters in Nagano Prefecture think it sounded cool? Did they want ChatGPT and handshaking robots? It appears not. Matsuda needed to finish in the top 14 out of 17 candidates, but he finished last with just 66 votes, or 0.4% of the total. This was by far the worst showing he would ever have in an election. In other localities across Japan, the Ishin Party did have some success, but it was not the case here. After failing to win in 4 different elections, Matsuda moved on to a new tactic. He decided to do away with his name and completely rebrand himself. If a human named Matsuda couldn't win elections, maybe somebody else could. The next chapter in this story takes place in November 2023 in the scenic seaside town of Manazuru in Kanagawa Prefecture. Small town elections usually don't get a lot of attention in Japan, but this one was special because it was being held after the previous mayor had made national news for allegedly using his post to access voter lists and make illegal copies of them for use in his own campaigns. 5 candidates were running for the post of mayor. 4 of them had Japanese names: Kobayashi, Sekoguchi, Hosoda, and Takeshita. The other candidate was named AI Mayor. Instead of using the Japanese word for mayor, AI Mayor was using the English word written out in katakana. In Japan, candidates are not required to run for office under their legal names. I'm not sure what the origin of this rule is, but I suspect it is because some major party politicians are former entertainers who use their stage names when running for office. There are also female politicians who get married and are forced to change their legal name to their husband's name, and these women don't want to confuse voters by running under their new last name, So the rules allow them to keep using their original family name even though it is no longer their legal name. This rule was probably not intended to let oddball candidates run under weird names, but the rules are the rules. If somebody wants to run as AI mayor, they can do it. AI Mayor's official newspaper advertisement declared that artificial intelligence would be used to bring fair politics to the town. It also noted that because this candidate would be using AI to make decisions, it was unnecessary to include his real name or his photograph. Other candidates' ads featured face photographs in their corners, but AI Mayor had a blank white box with private written in it. It also featured an image of an AI-generated man smiling in front of a seaside town, asking voters to visit AI Mayor's website if they wanted to discuss politics with an AI chatbot. The same smiling man was featured on AI Mayor's official posters. In small text at the bottom of the poster, the name of the actual human who was running for office was included, Matsuda Michihito. Some media reports also mentioned that AI Mayor was, in fact, Matsuda. It was a bizarre tactic that probably confused a lot of people. If they didn't read the small text, they'd have no idea who AI Mayor was, and some people may have thought it was some kind of prank. From what I could find online, it does not appear that Matsuda himself actively campaigned in the town. I could not find photos or tweets about him giving street speeches there. When election day came around and the votes were counted, AI Mayor only received 30 votes, less than 1% of votes. It was also lower than the number of invalid ballots submitted. Running under the pseudonym AI Mayor was an interesting idea, but it was clear that in-person campaigning was necessary to bring more attention to the cause of AI politics. A lot of people would throw in the towel and stop running after losing 5 elections, especially because simply being a political candidate costs money in Japan, regardless of whether one spends money on campaigning, posters, and other things. If you've seen my previous video about why many people run in major Japanese elections, such as the Tokyo gubernatorial election, you may remember that Japanese election laws limit candidacy through monetary deposits. If you want to be on the ballot, all you need to do is pay the deposit, which you usually get back if you get over 10% of the votes. So this is meant to discourage people who get less than 10% of the votes. However, it doesn't discourage everyone. And as you've seen in my other videos, there are a variety of attention seekers who deliberately run in elections with the full expectation that they won't reach that 10% threshold. And that's fine, if they think the attention they can get for that price is worth it. In local elections for mayor, city council, or town council, this deposit that they have to pay is between 150 and 1 million yen, which is about $975 to $6,500. This can be a bit pricey for the average worker, but maybe Matsuda made a lot of money in the IT sector and could afford to forfeit thousands of dollars in such campaigns. What is clear is that these deposits and losing them didn't dissuade him from continuing to run for office. And in 2024, he would have an opportunity to run on a much larger stage. Tokyo would be holding a gubernatorial election, which meant that millions of voters across Tokyo would see candidates' election posters on thousands of poster boards across the city. Each candidate would be given 6 minutes of airtime on public television to make their case to the public. And if one were to think of this as a chance to advertise oneself or a political cause, the election deposit of 3 million yen or 19,000 US dollars could almost be seen as a bargain. It could be seen as cheap advertising. However, a lot of people get this same idea, so in Tokyo elections there are a lot of attention-seeking candidates. In 2024, there were over 50 candidates running, so AI Mayor had a lot of competition. To get voters' attention and go viral on social media, you really need to stand out in these elections. To do this, Matsuda decided to present himself as a mysterious masked man. In the Manazuru election, he'd stayed behind the scenes and only presented himself as an AI-generated image of a smiling man on a poster. But now, Matsuda would become AI Mayor and insist that journalists refer to him as AI Mayor. While he continued to advocate the use of artificial intelligence, his campaign speeches focused more on other issues, particularly his belief that Japanese society should view candidates who hide their identities as legitimate options in elections. After all, we live in a world where VTubers and virtual idols have gained huge followings. If millions of people are fans of VTubers who hide their identities, why can't we also have VTubers running for political office? Or, if not a VTuber, maybe some guy wearing a white mask. In the election speech I shared at the beginning of this video, Matsuda talked about how running for political office in Japan is too risky for most normal people. You'd have to quit your job if you get elected, so many employers would be wary of hiring people who have been known to run for office in the past or might run for office in the future. You'd also be putting your real name out there on posters across your city, and this could expose a candidate's family to negative attention from people and possibly even lead to their children getting bullied in school. He also raised the issue of lookism in politics. Why should candidates have to put their face on posters or show themselves during campaign speeches? Some voters are going to judge people based on their appearance. He thought that we should normalize the idea of people running under pseudonyms and using avatars. Voters would then judge candidates based on policy ideas, not physical appearance. In media appearances, AI Mayor argued that lookism played a role in the political success of Tokyo Governor Koike Yuriko and her opposition rival Renho. Both had entered the world of politics after successfully working as TV presenters. The same idea could be carried over to male politicians, such as former Prime Minister Koizumi and his son, who have been complimented in the media for being handsome. Or, in the case of the United States, you can think of examples like John F. Kennedy or Bill Clinton, who also seemed to have a following when they were running for office due to their perceived handsomeness. I have to admit, he did raise some interesting points. If you can respect the privacy of your favorite VTuber, perhaps you can consider it reasonable to respect the privacy of politicians who want to remain anonymous. Obviously, such politicians would still be accountable to the public if they break the law, but is it really necessary for their real name and physical appearance to be visible to everyone? AI Mayor also made interesting points about the social cost of running for office. Having to risk unemployment or the impact of running for office on your family. These are the kind of things that do exist and haven't really been talked about a lot in public. I also don't think he was wrong in pointing out that this made it easy for independently wealthy people or members of political families to run for office, while discouraging most people who have to work regular jobs. His speeches and interview answers sounded like personal opinions based on his experience running in elections, rather than AI-generated talking points. AI Mayor's official website also mentioned other standpoints that seemed too bizarre or maybe even extreme to have been suggested by something like ChatGPT. One example is his plan to create an AI that relied on the political and historical expertise of Tamogami Toshio, a former self-defense force general who was sacked in 2008 for publishing an essay arguing that Japan was not the aggressor in World War II, a viewpoint at odds with the official stance of the Japanese government. Tamogami had also been convicted of bribery in 2014. Tamogami is admired by some Japanese nationalists for his views on history, but a lot of people would probably not want to be given advice by an AI that gets its information from a convicted criminal whose views on World War II were so extreme that Japan's conservative government had to sack him. AI Mayor's website also declared that he would make Otsu Ayaka his deputy governor. Otsu is a controversial figure involved in a feud over leadership of a fringe political party known as the NHK Party. She has never held any political office. I highly doubt that an AI chatbot told him to associate with her, but he did so during his campaign. AI Mayor's association with Tamogami and Otsu caused the left-wing counter-action racist collective, CRACK, to label him as a pro-hate candidate in the 2024 Tokyo election. So, although some of his views seem pretty reasonable and common sense, others are far more controversial. So now that we've got those issues out of the way, did wearing a white mask and hiding behind a giant speech manuscript cause AI mayor to become the most viral candidate of the 2024 Tokyo gubernatorial election? Some of you watching this already know the answer. No. Another candidate stole the spotlight from all the other minor candidates. Kawai Yusuke, Japan's infamous Joker politician, who I'll refer to as the Joker for the rest of this video. On the first day of the gubernatorial election, the Joker put up campaign posters that featured a nearly naked woman. Images of the poster quickly went viral, with many Japanese reacting with shock and outrage. Some thought it was a mockery of the elections. Others thought it was a threat to public morals. Children could see these posters. My own English language tweet about the Joker's posters went viral, reaching an audience of millions around the world. I even got a reply from Elon Musk, who found the posters to be bold. It became national news in Japan, and Japanese police were not impressed. They issued a warning to the Joker, and he quickly removed the posters in question. So how does this involve AI mayor? Well, it turns out that minor attention-seeking candidates sometimes cooperate with each other during election campaigns. It's basically impossible for a one-man campaign to put up thousands of posters across Tokyo, so the Joker and AI mayor actually formed an agreement to put up each other's posters. However, AI mayor did not share Elon Musk's views on the Joker's naked lady posters. He found them to be vulgar and inappropriate. He claims that he honored his agreement with the Joker, but chose to put up variations of Joker's posters that did not contain nudity. A couple days after police had warned the Joker about the posters, Japanese video site Nico Nico Doga live-streamed a debate involving many of the minor candidates not invited to the mainstream candidates' debate. The event was surprisingly orderly. Various minor candidates, some of them wearing wacky costumes, respectfully answered questions on their policy positions. However, not everyone was on time for the event. The Joker politician Kawai Yusuke showed up late, dressed as the Mask, not the Joker, and this caused the moderator to pause the event and announce the Joker's arrival.
河合祐介さんのご登場です。お願いします。
あれだよ、ちょっと待ってください。
はい。
河合さん今日出るんですか？
はい。
河合さん今日出るんですか？
AI mayor was not happy about this, and he called for the Joker's expulsion.
はい。
僕出ないと思ってるから来たんですけども、警察に警告されたような人がこの場にいるのはふさわしくないと僕は思ってます。なので、ご退場を進めていただきたいんですけれども。いや、良くないと思います。ちょっと待って、
はい。
しかも、僕らだって7時に来てるのに1時間も偉そうに遅れてきて。
とりあえずお前素顔出してから言え、とりあえずな。素顔も出せへんやつが偉そうなこと言うな、お前。
いやいや、ちょっと
すいません。
ちょっと、じゃあ、気づく。
松田さん。
河合さん、ちょっとね、ここで、議論していいのかいけないのか、僕はこの場にいるべきじゃない人だと思ってるんですけども、ちょっと、イエスかどうかで、ちょっと決議取ってもらっていいですか？
ちょっと待ってください。
At this point, moderator Hatakeyama, a veteran journalist who has covered AI mayor's previous campaigns, accidentally referred to him as Matsuda-san. It was an open secret that AI mayor, the privacy candidate, was the same guy who'd been running under the AI party label in previous elections.
松田さんのご主張というよりも、
松田さん AI メアです。はい。
ごめんなさい。すみません。AI メイヤーさん、
Nonetheless, AI mayor was going with an act that insisted that his wife and children didn't know that he was running for office. Meanwhile, people all over social media were referring to AI mayor by his actual name because it was clearly obvious who he was.
だって、一昨日だって警察から警告されてる人ですよ。僕ら真面目にやってるんですよ。だって、セクシーポスター貼って全国放送されて、なんでここにいるんですよ。僕ら真面目にやってるんで一緒にされたくないんですよ、河合さんとは。
いや、警告やからね、逮捕されたわけでも何でもないから、有罪でもないから。
ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。ちょっとストップしていただいていいですか？候補者討論会であって、現時点で候補者です、皆さん。
なので、候補者としてふさわしくないと僕は思ってますので、
それはAI メイヤーさん。 AI メイさん、AI メイさん、
お前が帰れ、嫌やったら。お前が帰れって。
じゃあ
みんなやってくれるやろ。
立花さん、どっちのこと帰らせてる？俺、ちょっとさ。
All of that text flying across the screen are real-time comments from viewers watching the stream. Many people were amused by the feud between Joker and AI Mayor, with some of them comparing it to pro wrestling.
ちょっとお待ちくださいよ。
ちょっと
どっちの方が
ちょっと待って、ちょっと待って、AI メイヤーさん、ちょっと待って。
Mr. Hatakeyama was eventually able to restore order after convincing the attendees that they should respect the democratic process by allowing everyone a chance to speak. This was not, however, the end of AI Mayor's feud with the Joker. It would go on at other events as well. Later in the election campaign, Nico Nico hosted an event that allowed every candidate to give a short speech. Although there were over 50 candidates, the Joker and AI Mayor somehow ended up back-to-back in the speaking order. It's almost as if they wanted some drama for the viewers. The Joker, Kawai Yusuke, was scheduled to speak first. Like in his other appearance, he was dressed like the Mask here, but he had a sidekick who was dressed like the Joker.
一夫多妻制を導入します。少子化対策の抜本解決、令和の大奥制度、複数の人を愛し、複数の家族を持つ社会へ。いいですか？好きな人と、好きなだけ、好きな数、家族を持っていいんです。そもそも自民党は宗教とつながってますから、イスラム教の文化である一夫多妻制を導入したって問題ないでしょう。それから少子化の原因のもう一つとしては、経済的に結婚するのに厳しいという問題があります。そこで私が当選したらこういたします。男女のデートの割り勘化を義務付けます。男性への人権侵害はダメ、絶対。なんで毎回怒らなあかんねん。やめろ、ふざけんのは。やめてくれ、ふざけんのは。うるさい。AI メイヤーうるさい。選挙妨害。AI メイヤーうるさい。黙れ、お前。
He's accusing AI Mayor of election interference, which is actually a crime in Japan. Earlier this year, a fringe politician was arrested for disrupting other candidates' speeches, so it's not exactly an unfair accusation.
あかんぞ、お前。おい AI メイヤー選挙妨害ぞ、お前ほんま。あかんぞ。黙れ。黙れって、お前ほんま。すいません、スタッフさん押さえてもらって。すいません。
AI Mayor would eventually back down and allow the Joker to finish talking. As far as I know, the Joker has not gone to the police to file a complaint against AI Mayor for illegal election interference. The Joker did not interrupt AI Mayor's speech, which was mostly a repetition of his previous points about privacy and AI. The event allowed candidates to bring along guest speakers, and AI Mayor actually set up a Zoom call to show viewers that he was cooperating with South Korean and Danish advocates of AI-based politics. This had taken place near the end of the campaign period, and soon afterwards Tokyo voters went to polling places and re-elected the incumbent governor by a wide margin. It wasn't even close. AI Mayor finished 17th place with 2,761 votes, which was less than 0.1% of the overall vote, but still about 700 votes more than the Joker. It's not a terrible finish considering the fact that there were 55 other candidates in the race. But this wasn't really a race for votes, it was a race for attention, and in that race, AI Mayor had succeeded in standing out and perhaps getting more attention to the causes that he was talking about. He may have also ended his feud with the Joker. Last week, he retweeted a post-election tweet from the Joker suggesting that the two of them form a stand-up comedy team. This raises an interesting question. Was their public feud during the campaign an actual disagreement? The feud succeeded in getting them a lot of attention online. Could it have been scripted, like a professional wrestling storyline? In a TV interview after the election, AI mayor argued that every candidate in the election except for Governor Koike had no real chance of winning. They were all just running for attention. He described his own campaign as a means of bringing attention to the problem of lookism in politics and the need for voters to seriously consider candidates who don't run under their real names or faces. Other guests on the TV program expressed skepticism about trusting such candidates. While the Tokyo election was underway, AI mayor had filed a lawsuit challenging Japan's election deposit and poster subsidy system, arguing that it places an unfair financial burden of poster printing on candidates who lose and have to forfeit their deposits. On July 26th, a couple weeks after the election, the Tokyo District Court ruled against AI mayor. They stated that the current system exists to prevent the wasteful expenditure of large amounts of public funds by candidates who do not genuinely intend to contest the election. In other words, the current system exists to penalize candidates like AI mayor. It does not appear that election laws will be changed in a way that benefits minor candidates. In fact, lawmakers might actually enact reforms that go against some of the points that AI mayor was making in his speeches. Recent news reports indicate that Japan's ruling coalition is considering changes to the election poster regulations that could require all candidates to put their names and faces on election posters. This seems aimed at preventing unserious candidates or the selling of poster space, but if enacted, it won't benefit candidates who are fighting against lookism or advocates of protecting candidate privacy through the use of pseudonyms or avatars. That brings us up to the present. It seems fairly reasonable to expect that AI mayor will run in the future, as will the Joker. They both represent the current state of so-called joke candidates in Japanese elections. Sometimes they bring up serious political issues and social problems, but other times they seem more focused on increasing their social media followings or promoting side businesses. Since they tend to thrive on social media, they often end up in the worst corners of the internet, engaging with people who are popular online for espousing views that are too extreme for mainstream media or mainstream political parties. However, they almost never win, and if they do happen to win elections, their more extreme views would likely be blocked by town or city councils. For example, other politicians would be very unlikely to cooperate with a plan to reduce the number of lawmakers and give their decision-making power to AI. Candidates like AI mayor and the Joker also raise the question of whether democracies should create barriers to prevent unserious candidates from running for office. In Japan, the current barrier is monetary. If these guys are wealthy enough to pay an election deposit of several $1,000s every time an election comes around, they are guaranteed to equal poster space in a system that bans paid advertising. As I recently told the New York Times, mainstream candidates can't amplify their messages to the point where they drown out the voices of these minor candidates. There also doesn't seem to be a major incentive to put up further barriers against minor candidates. Japan's current ruling coalition has been in power for many years, and I doubt they'd want to approve changes that might help narrow down choices for voters unhappy with the current order. There's also a reasonable argument to be made that the so-called joke candidates are pretty much harmless. If they're financially capable of paying the deposit to run as a candidate and willing to forfeit it if they lose, why not allow them to run in elections? Maybe we should just accept and appreciate the existence of fringe candidates as a normal part of having a functioning democracy. Okay, I suppose I'll wrap up the video here. If you made it this far, thank you for watching, and if you have any opinions about the matters that were raised in this video, I would appreciate seeing them in the comments. If this video receives a positive reception and generates a lot of discussion, I may create future videos providing similar detailed examinations of other odd candidates who have repeatedly run in Japanese elections, and there are a lot of them. I look forward to reading your comments, including your feedback on what topics you want me to cover in future videos. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing or checking out my other videos. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, everyone. Have a great day.